Siege here, and today I'm stalling a bit, as my lore video needs a little bit more time. I know, it sucks, but what started out as one video has now turned into at least two, maybe three, and if you've been with the channel long enough, you know I don't like to release videos until I'm completely happy with them. So, in order to give you all something to stretch your brain with this week, at least until part 1 shows up, I want to ask you all a very serious question. Do guns in Warframe even matter to you? I was playing a mission for the aforementioned lore video, and many of you might notice that I like to change the frame I use for each video. Sure, some rotate back around, but for the most part, I like so many of the frames that moving around gives the opportunity to remember again what I loved about whatever frame I'm using, especially if I haven't done so in a while. And with most frames being fairly unique, there's a lot of replayability that can be gleaned by just using someone new. However, it occurred to me that more often than not, I'm using the Amprex because, to me, it's not a weapon, more so as it's an actual ability, being able to attack multiple targets at once if they're bunched up. For the first time, though, I realized that with this Amprex, and its God Roll Ribbon, as I see it at least, which someone gave to me a long time ago for, I believe, an unranked vitality mod, because at the time, the Amprex was complete ass. There are only a handful of weapons that can be as efficient in destroying hordes of enemies in such a short period of time. And then I got to thinking about how I go after weapons in this game. Rarely, if ever, do I even bother with the new guns that are introduced because, let's be real, those just aren't worth going after unless you're a collector or like to grind for mastery rank. Because I'm neither of those things, the Amprex pretty much does everything I need and really keeps me from ever having to look for a new weapon. Even the Kuva Lich weapons that can add some interesting additional elemental attributes still don't do that much more than many of the current weapons, and when you add a Riven with any type of decent stats, it's generally a wash, if not better in the end. This bugs me because many of the weapons in Warframe are cool and unique and incredibly well designed, sometimes seeming exotic in nature with perks that should be something players gravitate towards, the Amprex being one of the best examples of that. However, I'm not so sure this is the case. Personally, the only time I ever actually set out to build a weapon is when I get a Riven for it. Pure and simple, and very rarely have I ever gotten a Riven I actually want. The vast majority of my Rivens are for weapons I have no interest in using, although I still at least build all of them to see what they could do. Add to all this the fact that, at least right now, melee weapons are so much stronger than any gun in the game. To me at least, it seems like there's a substantial part of the loot grind that doesn't mean anything. Is that a good thing? Most of you know that before Warframe, I was a Destiny YouTuber, and one of the things I appreciate to this day about that game is how unique the weapons, especially exotics, are when I play. For most of them, I have an actual memorable experience I can tie back to getting any of those guns. In Destiny 1, the ordeal I had to go through to get the Sleeper Simulant, the Black Spindle, the Outbreak Prime, the Necrochasm, and countless others are memories I can still recall to this day. The feeling I got when the gun was finally in my hand forever emblazoned in my mind. I wasn't a big Trials of Osiris player, still not, but one of the greatest moments of, I'd say, my gaming career was the day the Doctrine of Passing finally dropped for me. And even now, I can fire that game up and immediately fall back in love with those same weapons. And I have to tell you that even with weapon sunsetting, which sucks huge PP, there are still a ton of weapons that are just as iconic and substantially better in a lot of important ways. Guns like the Wither Horde, the Anarchy, the Lament, the Jotun, Xenophage, the Sunshot, and more join many of the Destiny 1 favorites who have returned, like the Last Word, Thorn, Outbreak Perfected, and even Hawkmoon now, all of which have not only fantastic and varied perks, but are also iconic in the way they look and sound. Tons of Destiny guns can be distinguished just from hearing a fellow Guardian fire them. I think you can find this same type of thing in other games as well. In Borderlands 3, there are guns like the Yellow Cake, an insane rocket launcher, the Hellwalker, a shotgun taken straight from Doom, and the Caisson, a submachine gun that fires sticky, explosive rounds, which is just a really small sampling of what that game offers. I mean, seriously, most guns in that game are just completely crazy. And amazingly enough, even the Division's weapons, the exotics and named weapons specifically, feel just that, exotic, especially in conjunction with the game's gear options. It's not a weapon, but there's an exotic holster in the game that burns any target that comes near your character. And I can't even tell you how many times that has saved my ass in close quarter combat, like the Summit game mode. All of these things are items that I actively grinded for once I knew where they were in game, and I have to ask, what weapons in Warframe really garner that kind of excitement? As I mentioned before, if it's not a melee weapon we're talking about, it automatically becomes unnecessary unless you just like playing with that gun. Weapons like the Supra, the Soma, the Axe Stilettos, the Tiburon, for the most part they can only attack a single target. In Warframe, focusing on one person is just asking for trouble, as you're normally swarmed with people. Not to mention the fact that things like the arc weapons being able to be used during regular missions dilute this situation even further. And there's a lot of guns in the game that needed development time to imagine and bring to fruition. It's almost like the majority of weapons take the same back seat as some of the less popular Warframes, sometimes being stuffed in the back of your arsenal without any desire to ever pull them out again. At least with Warframes, the helmet system does exist and can augment a bad frame to make it better, if you didn't already delete them as mastery fodder, that is. There's nothing like that with guns aside from getting a ribbon for them, but there's no way in game to actually target ribbon mods. You get what you get, and if you're anything like me, most of what you get isn't what you want. I am not getting into trading on the market because that is not part of the game. And given how people generally look to scam you there, it's happened to me quite a few times now, I don't think it's worth paying some exorbitant price for a ribbon that at the very best will only match what a melee weapon can do, at least at the present. And look, I get that not every gun in the game should be good, I really do, but we're approaching a time where guns are almost completely irrelevant, and I'm not sure that's such a good thing for the overall health of Warframe. It's too much content to just hand wave away as nothing. So I have a few suggestions. Let me know what you think in the comments and feel free to provide your own ideas on what can be done. Here's my take. How I would handle it is pretty simple. I would introduce what I consider an endgame planet. This planet would not be the typical Warframe area in that rank and file enemies would just be everywhere swarming all the time. Truthfully, I could see this planet having mostly boss-type characters, potentially hidden in different areas all over the map. They would all be much tankier than your typical trash mobs, and each enemy would have the rare chance to drop one of two specific top-tier rewards, with mods, planetary, and upgrade materials making up the rest of the loot pool. Imagine having to search out enemies deep within cave structures, let's say similar to that of the Plains of Eidolon, with only a few challenging enemies keeping you from, say, a significant final boss at the end. Something that, if you ask me, feels even closer to Dark Souls and Bloodborne in nature. The potential pinnacle rewards would be one of two things. The first would be a targeted ribbon drop area, one that maybe rotates from day to day or even week to week. Today you have the chance for a Soma ribbon to drop. Tomorrow could be the Lens. The day after that, you could be graced with a beauty like mine for the Amprex. The second reward I would introduce is a kind of new core system. I propose a common, uncommon, and rare fusion core to add to the legendary cores we already have. The common core could only completely upgrade common mods, with uncommon and rare acting in the same manner. The legendary core could still be used for any mod in the game, so these would continue to be the rarest overall reward. But these other mods, while also being fairly rare, would at least ease up on the cost of fully upgrading common and uncommon mods just a little bit and would provide a more targeted area for upgrade resources. Heck, I think you could even add Warframe affinities to each weapon. Like say the Tenora gets special bonuses if it's used by Octavia, or the Latron getting similar treatment when used by Frost or Ember, considering these weapons came with their initial or prime releases. Something that could be applied to the entirety of the game's suite of weapons. Really, anything to make Warframe players have something to do daily that isn't grinding for standing, because that's really what the game is about now, isn't it? Want the new rewards from Deimos? Grind standing. Want to get the best stuff from Fortuna? Grind standing. Want some of the best mods and such from the syndicates? Here, grind some standing. Sure, you can still go to planets and farm weapon parts or crack some relics for new prime weapons, but past that, it's just all about grinding for standing for the vast majority of the game, and I don't see that as being very interesting for most players that aren't collectors or completionists. Maybe these new activities have a modifier where the fewer the people in the group, the better the reward scale, adding a bit of endgame challenge, if you will, that is sorely needed. Personally, if there was a place I could actually target specific Rivens, I'd be spending a lot of time there. And even the completionists could use this to get Rivens for all their guns by actually playing the game versus going to the market to barter for them. This would allow people to at least keep their eyes out every day in Warframe for what's available. Bear in mind, people would still buy in trade chat because there would be required effort here to complete these new missions, and even then, the reward you want may not drop. However, it would at least give some direction on trying to get the build and the guns you want to play with, not the ones the game would rather see you use. It's just a thought, but one I think would get a lot of players back into playing, knowing that certain things they really want are actually within reach and can be grinded to get. Something substantially better than just standing, at least in my opinion. Is this a perfect fix? Heck no. But I do think it would get people interested in the entire game again, because as I see it, the older content, the star chart and whatnot, is still the best stuff the game has to offer. But what do you think? Could you see this work? What would you add or subtract from my proposal? I'll be curious to read your thoughts, but let me stress that if you say something in regard to the Riven Platinum market and how you or others might lose the ability to make platinum off people, please just keep it to yourself. I could care less about your personal platinum economy. I really could. That has nothing to do with the overall health of the game, and because of that, it's completely meaningless. Just warning you beforehand. But with that being said, first, sorry for the delay of the other vid. I promise you it's on the way. I just want it to be as good as possible before I release it to the world. I hope you understand. And like always, I hope you have a wonderful day today, wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.